Superkiller, Aleksandr the Great, Sasha Macedonian, Valerianich. These are all the nicknames for one of Russia's deadliest killers of all time, Aleksandr Solonik, responsible for about 47 if not more killings that included a few of Russian thieves-in-law. Solonik was even featured on Russia's top 10 most wanted list. Watch this video till the end to find out all about this absolute legend in the world of crime. Aleksandr Solonik had a few things in his arsenal that made him an excellent hitman. He knew exactly how to escape precarious situations. He also knew how to defend himself pretty well. Heck, he could even shoot Macedonian style, meaning that he could shoot with a gun in each hand. That's how he got one of his many nicknames, Sasha the Macedonian. Pretty cool, huh? That right there gives you a pretty good idea of what kind of man we're talking about here. And we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Well, you don't become one of Russia's most notorious killers and a part of the top 10 most wanted people for nothing. Let's get into the details of Solonik's story that can only be described as absolutely incredible. Think of a mix of Hitman and James Bond, only not fiction, but very much real. Now let's get right into it, starting with early life. Solonik was born on the 16th of October 1960 in the city of Kurgan in southeast Russia. As a teenager, he enjoyed activities such as wrestling and, yes, shooting, believe it or not. So it was only natural for him to join the military. He got his first training in East Germany as a member of a tank regiment for the Soviet Army. That's where he honed his skills as a cold-blooded killer. There were even rumors saying that he used to assassinate high-level NATO officials in order to destabilize the defense of Western Europe. The contracts he took allegedly cost his undisclosed employers hundreds of thousands of dollars per hit. After the Soviet Army, his next employment was the police force. His lawyer, Valery Karashev, once said of his client, he even became obsessed with the idea of becoming a Superman. He found something romantic about it. So when he served in the army, he made up his mind to become a cop. But his employment there didn't last long, you see, as he was fired after only 6 months because of his cruelty towards suspects. After his short stint with the police, he got back to his hometown and got a job as a gravedigger at the local cemetery. Solonik also decided to settle down, so he got married and had a daughter. The marriage also didn't last long, but he remarried and had a son. But this is where his life took a turn for the worse. Problems with the law and the first prison escape. In the year 1987, he was charged with the assault of a woman and sentenced to 8 years in prison. But then something extraordinary happened. During a farewell meeting with his wife before going to prison, he managed to escape through the window and jumped from a second floor of the building. But this is nothing. He also got out of much tougher situations, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, Solonik was now on the run, so he decided to go to Siberia of all places and the city of Tyumen. He was trying his best to stay undercover, so he had his mole on his face removed. But he couldn't stay hidden for long, as he was arrested soon after in the cosmetic salon and sent to a Siberian jail where he was designated to solitary confinement. It was because he was in the army and the police. However, he was soon transferred among other inmates, which was a terrible mistake. As soon as the other prisoners found out he was in the police, they didn't waste any time and marked him for death. But that didn't bother Solonik one bit, as he managed to defend himself against 12 prisoners at a time. So it was only natural that he earned the respect of the other prisoners. But he wasn't intending to stay in prison for long. So after only 2 years, he managed to escape by crawling through an air vent. This happened in April of 1990. Contract killings. Solonik then returned to his hometown and, given the fact that he was desperate for money, he linked with a local crime organization and started with contract killing. After his first killing, he decided to move to Moscow to perfect his craft. At first he targeted rival gang members, who he mostly shot up close in cold blood. As you might have expected, stories of his impeccable skill quickly spread in the criminal circles, earning him the nickname Aleksandr the Great. The Moscow police couldn't do a thing about the cold-blooded killer. They were too slow and powerless to stop him, as he had a rather supernatural ability to disappear pretty quickly. High-profile targets. It was in 1992 when he got his first high-profile, better-paying job. His first target? A crime boss and a thief-in-law, Viktor Nikiforov. Thief-in-law, in case you don't know, is a term given to a criminal who is respected, has authority and a high-ranking status within the criminal underworld in the old Soviet Union, Russia, and the republics that formed the former Soviet Union. Anyway, Only 6 months after successfully eliminating Nikiforov, he got another high-profile target, and it was also one of the untouchables of Moscow organized crime, Valery Dlugats. That was, without a doubt, one of Solonik's most audacious killings. Despite having an armored vehicle and the protection of bodyguards, Dlugats couldn't escape the superkiller, who assassinated him in public at a Moscow nightclub. In 1994, Superkiller assassinated Dlugats's replacement, Vladislav Wiener, as well. The same year, he tried to extort money from one of the most powerful mobsters in all of Russia, Ottari Kvantrishvili. When he couldn't do it, he murdered him in cold blood. As you can imagine, Superkiller's reputation by this point had become so big that he became infamous among the criminal underworld and top law enforcement figures in Russia alike. The police had had enough, so they decided to make him a top priority. Well, it was about time. They made quite a few attempts to catch him, but they were all unsuccessful. Second arrest and time in Matryoshkaya prison. Aleksandr Solonik was finally apprehended by Moscow police when he was having a drink at a marketplace. But then things got complicated pretty quickly, and it's all because the police didn't search him thoroughly. It was a fatal mistake. It turns out Solonik was hiding a gun under a raincoat, so he opened fire the first chance he got. He hit 3 cops, and then went outside and hit 2 more. He was wounded as well, but he managed to hold them off for quite some time. He couldn't do it for long as he was cornered and wounded, so he was finally arrested and sent to the infamous Matryoshkaya Tishina, or Sailor's Rest prison. He underwent the operation to remove a bullet from his kidney, and that all went well, but this time he was in a prison that was impossible to get out of. Second prison escape. No one has ever escaped from it. But Aleksandr Solonik, as we've witnessed time and time again, isn't just anybody. He isn't called Superkiller for nothing. This man is something else. Yes, he managed to escape this prison as well, but he did it with a little help this time. A man named Sergei Menshikov, rumored to be also working for the Russian mafia, supplied Solonik with a rope, climbing gear, and guns so he could escape from the roof of the prison into an awaiting BMW. He also placed a mannequin under a blanket on his bed to trick the guards, and just like that, Aleksandr Solonik became the only person to escape from Matryoshkaya Tishina. By this time, he had very limited hiding places in Russia, as his name and face were known to the authorities and general public. People even compared his almost supernatural ability to disappear and emerge again to that of Carlos the Jackal. After a supposed 43 kills, Aleksandr Solonik was done with all of that, so he used his fortune to escape to Greece in 1997. His time in Greece and death. His reputation now grew to mythical proportions in Russia, as he was featured in Russia's top 10 most wanted list. During his time in Russia, he obviously had many enemies within the mafia, and these people aren't exactly a forgiving type. So they hired an ex-Marine and one of Solonik's former associates, Aleksandr Pustovalov, to track Superkiller down. The trail led to a villa near Athens where Solonik lived with his girlfriend, former Miss Russia, Svetlana Kotova. It was on January 30th, 1997, that Pustovalov showed up at Solonik's Athens villa. Solonik welcomed him with open arms and the two started to talk. But as soon as Solonik turned his back, Pustovalov wrapped a thin cord around his neck and strangled him to death. This man also killed Solonik's girlfriend. Solonik's body was found in February 1997, 24 kilometers from Athens. In the months after his death, the authorities found out that Aleksandr Solonik had been hired to assassinate someone in Italy before his death. On the 10th of May, his girlfriend's body was also found. Aleksandr Pustovalov, the man who killed the Superkiller, was finally arrested in 1999 and sentenced to 24 years in prison. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like and also subscribe to our channel so you never miss an upload. Till next time.